Hey guys, welcome to KO Shorts. This is video number 5 of 7 in our series on dealing with doubts. And over the last few videos we've been talking about practical steps to taking captive every thought, taking control over which thoughts and feelings we engage with and which we do not. We've been following the story of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Faced with an impossible battle as 3 armies ganged up against them, he didn't allow his fear and his panic to overwhelm him. First, he was honest and vulnerable in front of himself, God, and others. Second, he focused on what he did know by remembering what God had done and who God was. And third, the third practical step that we're talking about today is that in the midst of his uncertainty, he focused more on the Lord. In verse 3, it tells us that feeling alarmed, Jehoshaphat resolved himself to seek the Lord and ordered a fast for all of Judah. He resolved himself to seek the Lord. He determined that he was going to seek the Lord. He was resolute. God, in the midst of this uncertainty, this fear, this panic, I'm not moving till I have your answer. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm facing anxiety, uncertainty, fear, panic, there are a few places I go to. Now don't worry, prayer is on the list. But there's other things I go to as well. I'll often try to sort it out in my own strength first. Maybe try and error, or maybe a search on Google. Maybe I'll run away from the feelings entirely and just ignore that they're there. And other times I investigate whether an extra large pizza from Papa John's and a tub of Ben & Jerry's ice cream will do the trick. Sometimes I pray first. But if I'm honest, sometimes prayer comes further down the list. And sometimes my attitude is that if I get on with my life, then surely God will move eventually, right? All things work for the good of those who love him after all. You know, it's so easy to seek answers, comfort, direction for other things. In an instantaneous society, it can be tempting to seek any answer or anything that makes me feel better right now, whether it's a temporary fix or otherwise. And yet that's not what Jehoshaphat does. It tells us that he focuses more on the Lord in the midst of his uncertainty. He fasts. What is fasting? Well, fasting is a spiritual discipline of abstaining from something to focus more on the Lord. And there are 2 things that come out of it. First, as we abstain from things, whether that's food, social media, or anything at all really, it means that we focus more time and energy into our relationship with God, and our relationship with him grows. And second, it's also an act of faith, as we say, I believe, God, that you are the answer. I'm not going to find my answer in any of these things. I'm going to find my answer in you. And ultimately, fasting equals focus. We say, I can do without many things, God, but I can't do without you. So basically, Jehoshaphat digs his heels in, says, I'm going to seek you, God. And he gets rid of all of the distractions and says, I'm focusing on you for the answer. I'm resolved to seeking your answer and waiting here for you until you move. And I think there are 2 things behind this. And the first is that this is God's battle and only he can win it. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, it tells us that we fight powers and principalities, not flesh and blood. In other words, behind the scenes of everything that we're seeing on earth, there is a spiritual battle going on for our hearts and for this world. And we can't win that in our own strength. And it's a question of what are we putting our trust in to win that battle? The things of this earth or God? Colossians 2 tells us that Jesus' death and resurrection won the ultimate victory. He won that battle. And further to that, in John 10:10, Jesus says, I have come that you might have life in abundance. Who and what are we trusting to win this battle? But second as well, there's a question of, is it worth having the comfort if we do so without the Lord? In Exodus 33 verse 15, Moses says to God, God, if your presence isn't going with us, then I don't want to go. It's you that defines me. I'd rather be with you without all the blessings than go and have the blessings but not have you. what is it? What answer are we seeking? Are we seeking temporary fixes that aren't the ultimate answer? Or are we seeking the one and true answer of God's victory? And in the midst of our struggles, in an instantaneous society, it's tempting to seek any answer, any temporary fix. But actually, I'd encourage us to take captive those thoughts, and instead of stopping spiritual things and taking any answer, resolve ourselves to set our hearts on the Lord. For some of us, it may be doing more spiritual stuff, and instead of dropping that, getting to church more, praying more. And maybe for some of us, the answer is fasting. Now, before you fast food, I'd encourage you to consult a medical professional and talk to other people about it. But there are other things you can fast as well. The point behind it is this: that Jehoshaphat resolved to seek the Lord. He put more focus on the Lord. And in the midst of whatever struggle, uncertainty, and temptation we're facing, I'd encourage you to seek God's answer and wait for it, rather than the temporary fixes that we could fill ourselves with. Amen.